son is racing.
Welcome, race fans, to another episode of the Rubbin' is Racing Daily Fantasy NASCAR Show. We have all your action as NASCAR turns left and right this week. We're going racing at the Glen, kids. It's for the I Love New York 355 this week. We'll go 90 laps with the stage breaks at lap 20, lap 40, and then all the way to the finish.
Interesting fact about Watkins Glen is that they've raced here 34 times. 7 of those 34 winners came out of the top, outside of the top 10. 21 of those 34 winners all started from the top 5. Since the Gen 6 car in 2013, the winner has started 5th, 6th, 16th, which was a bit of an anomaly, obviously, based on that history that I just laid out, and then 6th last year. This being the first year with the segments being implemented into the races, look for strategy to change all that this upcoming race tomorrow.
We've got chances of rain, but it doesn't matter as we've got the lone windshield wiper on the car this week. When we go racing, 3 p.m. Eastern on NBC Sports Network. That's Sunday as always, kids. All right, Liehr, we're going to the Glen, buddy. Do some burning rubber for us.
All right, brother. Well, as far as the burning rubber this week, I'm not going to be able to yell because both the lady and the child are sleeping. So I'm actually going to throw it over to you this week and see what kind of effort that you can put into it and give it some of that New York love, my friend.
All right, let's try this. Burning rubber New York style, baby.
I like it.
All right, I tried to do you justice, but so who do you have to burn some rubber for us, buddy?
All right, brother. Well, mostly as we always do on this show, we most times will wear the ball cap of the driver that we are supporting, or in this case, for my situation, the team that I will be supporting this weekend. But I'm basically going to be rolling with Team Penske this weekend. We'll start off with Brad Keselowski. Kes and the number 2 team, they have 2 wins this season. They're obviously locked into the playoffs, which is a good thing for them. But Brad has had a couple of good momentum weeks these past few weeks with top 5 finishes at Pocono and obviously at Indy with all the carnage that happened there. But Brad, over the years, has really developed himself into a very well-rounded overall driver at all the different type of tracks. So, it's kind of like Martin Truex this season where every single week we go into a different track type. He's always going to be a play. But Brad, over the years has really developed into a very well-rounded driver overall, but has done very, very well at Watkins Glen and has had some fantastic, finishes here. And he even had a fantastic finish earlier this season at the other road course race that we run on the circuit once a year, which is Sonoma, where he finished 3rd. He's raced here 7 times at the Glen. He does not have a win here, but he does have 4 top 5s and 7 top 10s. So, I mean, seven times he's at least finished in the top 10, and 4 out of those 7, that's over a 50% clip. He's finished in the top 5. So, he's finished 2nd here 3 times. And then the last time he has a 3rd place finish when he started 12th. This week his cost is $9,800, which is 4th highest on the board. So he's pretty much priced where he should be. And as we can tell, all the prices based off of last week have come down some. So everybody's kind of more stacked as far as the pricing points go. But he's basically priced right, in my opinion. But no matter where he starts after qualifying tomorrow, he's going to be a play in my book, regardless of where he starts. That's if he's on the pole, if he's, middle of the top 5, over top 10. I mean, just no matter where this guy's going to start at, he's got to be a play in your lineups just because based on his racing ability here at the Glen. And I also think, too, that team, they're hungry to get, the win off their back for a road course. So I'm definitely going to be playing a lot of Kez this weekend, and he's just been a very, very consistent fantasy play week in and week out. And as most of you know, he's been on most of the winning lineups the last handful of weeks. So I definitely think that trend is going to continue this weekend.
As far as the Kez part of your argument goes, I have zero problem with Kez. He looks solid. I don't know that they're actually as fast as the Toyotas. I think the Toyotas were holding back in practice too. Just kind of looked like they were trying to just settle in, and they were all lightning fast in practice one. I'll get into that in a little bit more detail, but I like the Kez play here. I think you're just right about it. So
and he was fastest in practice too, but like you said, I think some of the drivers were kind of holding back in practice too, just kind of going out there and seeing what their equipment can do. Because practice one earlier, it was Rowdy was on the fastest in practice in that one. So
and the practice one was really interesting because we had Dale Jr., Corey LaJoie, Danica, Jimmy Johnson, and Kurt Busch all spin out or get into the wall. And yeah, so there wasn't a whole lot of time to run laps in practice one, on condensed time for the practices. So I think track history and drivers that are just really good here and that showed good speed are the way you're going to want to go. You kind of telegraphed a little bit about the Logano play. You want to get into it more here?
For sure. But as far as Logano, he needs a win under his belt. Obviously, he got that win earlier this season at Richmond, but didn't count because he and his Team 22 team failed post-inspection. So he's still looking to get that win and get him locked into the playoffs. And he's going to be definitely in desperation mode this weekend with only 5 races left, including this one, to get that done. So he is racing the Xfinity race here today at the Glen, and he was on the pole. So, he does have some really, really good stats here. Joey's basically raced here a total of 8 times. He does have a win under his belt back in 2015. He's got 3 top 5s and 5 top 10s out of those 8 races. And he's finished here in the last 4 races 7th, 6th, 1st in 2015, and then 2nd last year. So 1-2 in 15 and 16. And look for that guy to basically pull it all out on the line tomorrow to get himself locked into that playoff position. But his cost this week is under where it should be, and his cost is only $8,600, which is 11th highest on the board. And I'm sorry, in my opinion, he is definitely way higher driver than 11th position when it comes to fantasy salaries this week. So Joey definitely, practice times were off a little bit today. He was right behind Keselowski in practice 1, but in practice 2, he was in the mid-teens. So, but look for him to get a good top quality 5, start tomorrow to qualify in the top 5 and plug him into your lineups. As he and his crew chief, like I said, Todd Gordon, will be making some bold strategy calls tomorrow. And give them the edge over the rest of the drivers. And I'm the same thoughts on Joey as I am on Keselowski. No matter where he qualifies, I am going to have exposure on Joey Logano because he is in that desperation mode, and they do need to get that win or solidify them and lock them into a spot in the playoffs. They still can get into the playoffs, but having that win underneath their belt just, gives them that security that they need. But it's going to be crazy tomorrow, brother. And, I know we're going to talk a little bit about strategy here in a little bit, but with everything into play, this is a fast road course. So it should be for some really, really fun racing tomorrow.
Yeah, as far as Logano goes, the guy has been a coin flip all season. You either have to have him on your lineup for the winning lineup, or he's a dumpster fire and is going to light your lineup on fire. Just look at his last 5 races. -18 fantasy points, 43, -13, 43, and 0. Yeah. So if I'm going to pull the inner Rain Man Liehr out of me, I'm going to tell you that I also like this play because he should hit that 43 mark again. But no, I mean, there's serious concerns.
Based on the trends, right?
Right. There's serious concerns with the way Logano's been inconsistent as of late. But I think that's going to drive down ownership percentage of anything, even with the depressed salary. I like the play. I have no problem with where you're going. I just like my strategy a little bit better. And that said, my strategy, my burning rubber pick is I'm starting off with a ham bone himself, Hamlin at 9,200. The first thing you guys all need to understand about last year's champ of the Glen is that his longtime girlfriend is very pregnant. And by very pregnant, I mean she's in the hospital and about to deliver. If she actually goes into delivery, he is going to leave the track and Regan Smith will fill in. You're going to have to pay attention on this play specifically for Hamlin, but that's part of why I really like this play. I think that's artificially going to drive down ownership of a top 5 car and a top 5 road course racer. I think that you're going to have a unique opportunity to get him. He's fairly cheap for who he is and at low ownership, and that's something I'm going to want to gobble up. But if he leaves before the race starts, Regan Smith will be the driver of that car, and you will get 0 points for rostering Hamlin. So please, please don't make the mistake of rostering Hamlin if he swaps out. Liehr, your thoughts on Hamlin?
Well, I think it's going to be interesting too, brother, that, there's going to be some people that unfortunately they've got stuff going on with their family or their Sunday plans that they normally always do, and then maybe DVR the race and watch it later. But I guarantee you, if something happens to that magnitude of where she starts getting into delivery before the race starts and he has to take off and Regan Smith gets in that car before the race starts, we are going to have teams that are going to have exposure to Denny Hamlin, and they won't be able to change their lineups, or they forget about it, or whatever. If you're out there and you don't have the DraftKings app on your phone, I definitely highly recommend that to you in that case, because it makes it convenient if you're out and about on your Sunday fun day to give the ability to change that. But I think even if that does happen, we will have some dead lineups with not completely dead, because I think there's going to be some carnage here tomorrow, but that will have exposure to Denny Hamlin that will get a big fat 0 because he won't be racing. So, but yeah, definitely a huge thing to pay attention to there. But I mean, talk about a guy that has a high ceiling and a high risk reward factor to him all in one. So, I'm definitely love Denny Hamlin here at Watkins Glen. He's got some great finishes here. He also has some really, really poor finishes too. He had a string of 3 in a row where he crashed from 2010 to all the way to 2012. So last year, when he started in the top 10, he's always consistently stayed up there in the top 10. But if he has a poor starting position, he's had some pretty poor finishes. So, like we talked about, high risk, high reward with old Denny Hamlin, but at least he already does have that win in his pocket from New Hampshire to lock himself into the playoffs. And but I definitely think that Hamlin will be a question mark. You just got to make sure that you pay attention. But if he's going to be racing tomorrow, I'm going to have some exposure.
Right. Now, remember, kids, DraftKings clarified this for us earlier in the season. As long as he starts the race in that car, you will get full points. So if she goes into labor at lap 20 and he comes into the pits and does a driver swap, which at this track should not put them a lap down. He'll stay on the lead lap.
Should still be on the lead lap, yeah.
And people will fade like crazy. I just have a gut feeling that people are going to underplay Hamlin for as good as he is on the track.
Because they don't want to mess with that X factor.
Right. But I do, and I'll try to take advantage of it if it pays off. Something else I'm going to try to take advantage of is the rest of Joe Gibbs Racing. They are back, and they are fast. Hamlin's win, we were kind of questioning whether or not that was a little bit fluky. And Rowdy's been fast all year, but hadn't been able to get it done until last week. I think Kenseth has even shown flashes of greatness in the past few races from time to time. I think that this is a week, again, where they're all fast. Suarez is running at the Rookie of the Year and has been dynamite. I like them all, man. Play one, play them all. I have no problems if you want to stack JGR on this road course this week. Your thoughts, Liehr?
Yeah, well, first, let's give a little tip of the cap to your Rowdy finally getting off the schneid last week at Pocono and getting a W. What a dominating car and a good performance. And just think if, I was kind of mixed bag. I had minimal exposure on the 1-2 combo of Kyle Busch and Truex Jr. I was more thinking it was going to be, I had pretty much Kyle Busch on almost every lineup, except I thought it was going to be more of the Kyle Busch, Kyle Larson, the double Kyle train getting it done. But when Kyle Larson, blew out his train there, that kind of hit me real hard. But not too many of those combinations did I think it was going to go 1-2, and then Dale Jr. Being in the winning lineup. That guy, he hadn't performed well at all, and I knew that starting position was pretty sweet. And we had a guy ask me, he's like, "So do you have a ton of exposure on Dale Earnhardt Jr.?" And I said, "No. I mean, I love his starting spot, but he's just been garbage, and he complained about his car the whole time." And but back to JGR again. Remember last year when they were the only teams that had the windshield wipers on their cars, nobody else did, and there was like no rain in sight. It was pretty funny, but I think that JGR again has a great shot of taking down the victory this weekend, but it depends on who where they're going to qualify at, and we don't know that yet. So obviously we know Kenseth is the driver that everybody's looking towards to getting himself off the schneid and fighting for himself to get a seat next season in a new car. But there's going to be other guys jockeying for it too. I mean, you got talking about possibly Kurt Busch and the whole thing going on with Stuart Haas not picking up his option for next season. Some other things going on, but even Daniel Suarez, the kid started in the top 10 last weekend and finished again in the top 10, and he's just proven everybody wrong week in and week out. And I still am under-owned on the guy just because it's so hard to press that button
Right.
and put him in there, but it just kicks you every single time after the race, and you're just like, man, I knew I should have went with my gut and played him. But even too, Eric Jones this week, part of that JGR affiliate, he's way underpriced, like what he's normally been all season, and he was practicing in the top 10 earlier today too, so kind of look out for him. But Martin Truex Jr., this hasn't necessarily been one of his stronger tracks as a road course racer, but again, like we talked about, it's kind of been one of those common nomenclatures in 2017 that no matter where we go, Martin Truex Jr. is just a play, and that team is just that good.
Oh, yeah.
It's just going to depend on how you can formulate your lineups to fit all of those guys in there. So I'm definitely going to have some exposure on JGR. I definitely like Kyle Busch again this weekend. I just don't know how much exposure I'm going to have on a mixture of all three of the guys. Or four, excuse me.
Right.
Or if you want to say six.
Six with the Furniture Row team. Yeah. No, and I think that's appropriate. Now that we've got the Bernie Rubber picks out of the way, I think it's important to talk about a little bit of strategy before we get into the value picks that you're always going to need any given week. Now, with this race being a road course race, it's normally harder to pass, and with the stages, it's going to get crazy. Now, Liehr, I think we should talk a little bit with our audience about how we see this race playing out. And one of the things that I'm concerned about is that if we have one of the main cars, right, pull away at all, so if Rowdy pulls away or Kez pulls away or Truex pulls away, everybody behind them pits early before the end of the stage and forces that car to pit at the end of the stage and start from the end of the line. And this could really mix things up and cause different pit cycles and possibly get somebody that has no business winning this race, starting in the teens, in a position to win the race at the end of it. What do you think, bud?
Yeah, I think it's this is going to be a huge question mark this weekend, people. I think it's going to be a lot more than what people and even some of the other touts out there really think, because you're going to have strategies to where guys are going to pit early before the segments come into play. The fuel window for these guys is between about 30, 32, 35 laps, somewhere in there, in the early 30s. So, but you're talking about segments of 20, 20, and 50. So we got 90 laps total. But you're going to have guys, and depending on how many cautions we have too, and how many wrecks that we have, carnage. But there's going to be some bold calls. Guys coming in on green flag racing. I mean, you could even have some guys coming in even in the first segment, real early, and get kind of off the regular cycle compared to all the other drivers and teams out there. And it's just going to be a crazy race. So that's why I think that, yeah, this is all going to be about place differential this weekend, folks. You know, dominator points are few and far between with 90 laps led. You throw in, you know, caution laps and all the other stuff for segment, you know, for the segment breaks as well. You know, and then fastest laps, you've got, you know, quarter of a point, and then I'm sorry, laps led at quarter of a point, and then fastest laps half a point. But you know, the dominator points this weekend are going to be few and far between. It's going to be all about the 1 point per place differential this weekend. So it's going to be about picking those drivers and those guys that have the largest gap for place differential. And I think with this is the first time we're doing this at the Glen with the segments. I think there's going to be a question mark winner this weekend. And I think it's going to be somebody probably from the teens or the 20s that we had no clue or thought that would win this race, that is going to be on the right cycle and get the win. And it's one of those that I think we're going to look at. It's going to be somebody pretty low owned probably, just because of the fact of, you know, most people pick the dominators normally, which are, you know, the top, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys starting in the top 5. And granted, all those stats that I said earlier in the intro, you know, come from the top 5, but we have not had these segment implementations with all these strategies and everything coming into play. So I think it's all going to be thrown out the window, and it's going to be a huge question mark. And it's going to be kind of like going back to Indy a couple weeks ago, but without, you know, with all the wrecks and stuff happening, to where you've got lineups that you're just, you know, scratching your head saying, how in the heck did somebody submit that lineup in? And that's what's going to take down GPPs and qualifiers this weekend.
It may. I don't know, man. The jury's still out for me on whether or not I like this segmented racing and whether or not I think it's good for NASCAR. But I can tell you already, I am 100% certain it does not belong on road course races whatsoever. Now it's time for value picks. Liehr, who do you got to save some money this week, buddy?
All right, brother. For my value this week, I'm going to be going with the number 95 team with the Levine Family Racing. You know, it's been performing pretty good this season for, you know, a smaller team. And I look for that trend to continue here at the Glen this weekend. You know, this is definitely one of those types of tracks where the smaller teams kind of have the great equalizer this weekend with the big boys, because this is actually one of those tracks where they have a legitimate shot or chance to actually take down a win. And I know you're going to be talking about, you know, a guy that possibly has that chance too here in a little while. But I think that this guy also too, you know, don't look over past him. But McDowell's had looked upon as, you know, one of the road course ringers, kind of like AJ Allmendinger. And McDowell's also performed above expectations on track types that he's done well at this season. You know, he's led a few laps at Dover and Vegas. Crazy. You know, nobody ever thought that he'd lead any laps this season. He's had a top 5 and a top 10 both at Daytona, which nobody, you know, thought that would take place either. Even at Indy, I know it had a lot of carnage, you know, going on there, but I mean, that guy was in the top 6 towards the end of the race at Indy before the restart incident happened there. But this is also one of those tracks that, you know, over the years, there's just so much carnage and stuff that can happen with so many turns, and you know, people with their with drivers getting into their fenders and in quarter panels, cutting down tires, you know, having the big wreck where, you know, the first turn there where they come down the hill and they just got to lay on the brakes, and equipment failures. This is also a huge aspect this weekend, because there's just so much wear and tear put on that equipment, especially the brakes. You know, they're going to be doing a lot of shifting, but today, you know, and I'm going to call him Mickey D, but today, Mickey D was, you know, in the top 10 in both practices and looking awesome. And I would not be shocked if he qualifies up in that top 10 as well. Overall, his racing history here at the Glen has not been as stellar as a lot of people probably would think, but he's got 8 starts, 0 top 5s, and 0 top 10s, with an average start of 23.6 and an average finish of 32.8. So everybody that's going to see that's going to say, well, there's no way I'm going to play this guy. But on top of that, throw in his salary, which I have no idea, you know, where they were thinking. But $7,100 for Michael McDowell is crazy. A lot of people, you know, his normal average pricing is, you know, $6K, $6,100. down all the way to where I think that at one point this season he was like 4,900 or 5,000. So I think he surprises a few people this weekend. I think he'll have a fantastic fantasy points. Again, this is a driver that I'm not really concerned where he starts from. But if he starts from 8th or higher, I'm obviously probably going to temper my love for him. But anything above that top 10, I'm going to be all about the Michael McDowell play this weekend because I think he's going to have a great finish. But I also think as far as from an ownership perspective, he's going to be pretty low owned because of that salary.
I completely agree, dude. I think that if he qualifies even top 15, people are probably going to own him less than like 4% in most of these fields. And that could be a difference maker for you. And you're getting an extremely good driver that is built for road course racing. And it looks like the Levine family has sunk a lot of time and effort into getting this car right for this race because they look good. Like,
yeah.
There's just no way around it. Another car that doesn't look as good this week, they were having some issues, but it's a guy with a win here and a guy that is phenomenal at road course racing and somebody I usually send to the garage because I don't like the way they DraftKings prices this guy, AJ Allmendinger at 8,800. Like I said, usually I rail about this guy being way overpriced and how you basically can't play him unless he wins the race. That's not the case this week. Although he's $2,700 more expensive than he was last week, it's the cheapest we have seen him on a road course at 8,800. The Dinger tears this track up. He has a win here. He has 4 top 5s, 5 top 10s, and other than 2015 when he had a bad performance, he doesn't have a single finish outside the top 15. Like, that's how good he is here. Now, you can't say that about Dinger anywhere else. And I know 8,800 is a little expensive, but guys, you're not doing it right if you're not plugging Dinger in your lineup this week, most likely, especially because he's cheap and cheaper than what he should be. Liehr, your thoughts on the Dinger?
Oh, the Dinger. Well, first, I've been impressed with the Dinger this year overall from a driver perspective. Now, on most tracks, he's qualifying between that 22 to 30 range, with sometimes getting up there in the top 20, but very few times. But he's had some great finishes this year, man, and he's getting a lot of confidence in that team. And with him and Chris Buescher, they've had a pretty good season over there at JTG Racing, Doherty Racing. But when you talk road course racing, who do you think of? Think of AJ. I mean, every single time you talk about a road course, you always think of Allmendinger and these quote unquote ringer guys like, Boris said, which FYI, last race Boris said's going to be participating in this season. So, but, I think that his cost is nowhere near probably what it should be with a guy that this is only his only career win is here at the Glen back in 2014. But, he didn't practice very well today either. So I don't know if that car is going to qualify in the top 10 or not. But if you're talking about a guy of his magnitude that quote unquote specializes in road course racing, is going to a track where he has his only career victory, barring any, unforeseen circumstances or mechanical issues or anything like that. This guy's a definite top, 8 driver when it comes to road course racing. And just like all the other teams, this is his one and only shot and chance and opportunity to get into the playoffs this season. I mean, this is it. He's not going to, any of the races that we have here on out, AJ Allmendinger is not going to win those races, but he's got a chance to win here this weekend. So as far as from a fantasy perspective, I want that guy on my team, and I don't care if he's $8,800 or not, and I don't care if he's really highly owned either, because if he comes and he does what he's supposed to do, it doesn't matter what his ownership percentage is because he's going to score the darn points. So put him on your lineups and get him in your lineups because this guy's going to do it this weekend.
And just so some of you don't call me out on the YouTube page for not giving you actual value, I'll just go to the staple. The RCR cars are always in play, as well as the Roush Fenway cars. Like, they're too cheap. They have place differential positions. Those are also in play. I just think that Dinger's the play you need to be on at his price before you're on any of those guys.
Yeah.
All right, now we kind of got called out last week for not going to the garages, but that's not our fault. That's NASCAR's fault with no qualifying. However, we did have a situation this week where we both agreed that we can get you a going to the garage pick. First, we're going to send Dale Jr. to the garage. Oh no. Oh, Dale, no. Yeah, we're going to have to send you to the garage for actually performing last week and being on a lineup after you said you hated your car and should have been unplayable as bad as you had been this season. Now you're in the same predicament this week, and you're even in you're appearing to be even in a worse car, as you are extremely unhappy with this car, Junior. And he seems to basically just not want to race. According to according to him, this is literally the quotes of how bad he hates this car. Steering is pretty bad. There's a dead spot in the wheel where I turn the wheel and nothing happens. The car is wandering down the straightaways. Into 10, it just wanders left and right. And the front tire is locking up into turn 10 into turn 1. That is a whole list of problems with the car. And that was only part of what they decided to share with us on NBC Sports Network. So my guess is you want no piece of Dale Jr. And to be honest, all the Hendrick teams look off and slow this week. Liehr?
Yeah, I mean, even Jimmy Johnson way back in the back, by the way, disappointing for him last weekend. I thought he was I think he was like 15% or less owned last week. And I was like, oh, this is going to put me on such an island. And then he just goes ahead and teammates, getting into each other there with Casey Kane and going to the back of the wall and going to the garage because he was done. But they've had these last month, man, they have been severely disappointing over there in the 48 team as far as results go. They started out 2017 very well, but overall, Hendrick Motorsports is kind of struggled, except for the win by Kane there in Indianapolis. It's been a little while for those guys, so they've been struggling as we get to the latter part of the season here. But as far as Dale Earnhardt, man, I like I said earlier in the show, I got asked about if I had any exposure on him, and I said, of course, no, I don't, because I didn't believe in him at all last weekend at Pocono. And of course, starting from that 23rd position, I should have known better that regardless of how I felt about the driver, that was just too high of a spot for him to start, to not have any exposure on him. And it's probably going to be the same thing this week, kids. So, if it's one of those to where they qualify 20th or higher, you're probably going to want to have exposure on Dale Earnhardt this week, just because, that car overall should be a higher car than, the mid 20s or wherever he would qualify at. So, I think you got to look a little bit more into that when you're talking about equipment and drivers and where they're starting at. But when it comes to Earnhardt, though, this is one of those tracks where he has not performed. He doesn't have any wins here. He's raced here 16 times. He's got 0 wins, only 2 top 5s and 3 top 10s. And his average start here is 16.6 with an average finish of 21.7. So, trends to go towards the back for Earnhardt on this one. And the crazy part is the last 2 seasons, he started 7th and finished 11th. So he loves going to 7-11 for those Slurpees and not, doing very well when it comes to racing here at the Glen. So my choice is, if he starts in the top 10, top 15, no, I'm not having any exposure on Dale Earnhardt. But if he's going to be, between 22 to 20, higher than 22, then yeah, you're going to have to own some of that of Dale Earnhardt this week.
No, I don't think you will, and I completely disagree with you. That car is practicing 31st and 32nd. That car is practicing behind Landon Castle, David Reagan, Cole Witt, Austin Dillon, Ryan. I can keep going. That car just looks off. If that car qualifies below those guys after looking that bad in all the practices, there's just no. They only have an hour between, less than that, because we're doing the road course this week, between qualifying and race time. There's just no way to get that car right if it's still that bad off. I'm sorry. I will continue to fade Junior, even if it's at my peril. I love the guy. I would love nothing more than for the guy to go out and dominate, have a fast car that he could run and win at these tracks with. That's not the case right now, and I think it's a pipe dream. And I think most people are going to jump on board. Oh, last week, and look at this starting position. I would honestly rather save a lot of money and roster David Reagan, or save a little bit of money and roster Austin Dillon.
And he's 8K. He's 8K this weekend.
It's good price for the old junior of what he used to be, but like 8K is too much for that driver for what he's been doing this year. It emotionally makes me feel bad talking trash and sitting in the garage, but
think about it like this, okay? Let's take the Earnhardt driver out of the car, out of the situation.
Yes.
8K for the number 88 car. Is that a good value for just the car itself? For a Hendrick car?
Not with the Schneid Hendricks on and what he's currently doing. If I told you, take the Hendrick name away from it. I told you a car practiced 32nd and 31st and then qualified in the 30s. Would you want any piece of it?
Let's say Alex Bowman was in that car this weekend. Would you play Alex Bowman at 8K in that car?
Possibly.
Okay. That's all I want to know. Just because I think that, yeah. Has he performed horribly this season? Yeah. Did he have a decent finish last week? Yeah. He had some good place differential. I think it was 10 place differential positions. And then, obviously positive for the place where he finished at was 13th, I think, when starting from 23rd. But the thing is, man, is if he starts in that same position again, even though he's saying that his car's horrible and he doesn't like it, and he's saying the same thing last week, I still think if he starts from that same position, it's kind of
Fair enough. We are just at an impasse here. I will have zero.
Okay.
I love you, bro, and I understand what you're saying. And dude, no, I'm done. Like, I will let him destroy my lineup. Are you sure
that's not just from you having sour grapes that he was on the winning lineup last week?
No, because it was fluky that he was. He literally only got there because of a couple of guys going negative that made it fractionally okay to put him on. 10 place differential points is not that good of a finish for a guy finishing 13th, right? Like, you're only adding a 10 bonus. It just happened to work out that he somehow squeezed his way onto the winning lineup. Now, if your argument is he can get more if he starts further back, I'm going to say it's harder to pass, and the car's even more garbage. I don't know.
But still, again, I think with the segments and everything else that we've got coming into play this weekend, I think you're just getting yourself bonus points by picking guys that ladder in the starting lineups.
Has he not blown 2 engines so far this season on tracks where he has to shift? Is that not at least at a 50% clip?
Yeah.
Like, would that not warrant automatically fading?
No, I mean, it wouldn't automatically warrant because every weekend's a new weekend, brother. Like,
wow.
You can't say, well, just because he's done it before, he's going to do it again. I think that it just depends on where he qualifies at is where what's going to tell me what I need to do with that play.
No, for sure. But I could also say everybody on the track could wreck and Cole Witt could win this thing, right? It's a probability argument. I just think you're on the wrong side of probability, and I think a lot of people are going to do it. And I just don't think he's happy to be in a car right now, and he's never been good at this track, which just also spells like he'll get out of that car as quickly as possible on Sunday. Mark my words.
Yeah, he has not had a single finish within the top 10 since 2004.
Well, kids, that wraps up the Going to the Garage segment, and unfortunately, some things have gone down in the DFS community with people making accusations and going after other people. Not either me or Liehr. We're all in the clear. Nobody's complained about us. But people have reported good friend of the show, Pierce Dietrich, for giving out and trying to help out, give an instructional lineup, which is what we do. We always tell you every week to compete against our lineup, not to copy it, as we're trying to put it out there for instructional purposes. I know both of us are tore up about not being able to do this, but we don't want to violate DraftKings terms of service, and we tried to find a way to do it partly and thought it would be fun and funny, but it just wasn't coming together, and we don't want to risk our ability to play, and we don't want to risk your ability to decipher our information and you get called out for it. So the way we're going to do the show until they clarify anything else is we're just going to do the picks for now, and we can add some more segments. If you guys have segment ideas, shoot us an idea, maybe a rumors talk. Maybe we should start talking trash on the fantasy NASCAR community for putting us in this predicament. Liehr, what do you think?
Well, obviously, it was kind of a main staple of our show, but we just want to show you the proper process and form of putting together a lineup. And unfortunately, people in the community have complained about that, and I understand their perspective, but also too, we're doing this for free. We're doing it for the community. I know there's obviously money involved here, but also we're not charging anything for anybody to view this either. So, but basically, to make up for that, I'm going to do this out of my own personal stash, but because he was my value guy. But I'm going to give away this Michael McDowell diecast. So make sure you like, comment, share. But you definitely have to hit the like button, and you have to comment on the show and give us some ideas and thoughts on what you guys think about the show. And but we will pick a random person. And we'll do it live on next week's show. And Michael McDowell, hopefully this will give him the luck to get it done this weekend and get some big fantasy points. But I'm going to give this away to one of our lucky viewers.
No, guys, unfortunately, we would love to do the lineup, but people that are selling information, we decided to make it so that other people can't because they want to profit money, which is just shady and disrespectful in my opinion. But we can get more into that. If that's what you guys want to see the segment replaced with, I would be more than happy to rail against people that are doing that. So, like Liehr said, we'll say our goodbyes real quick. You need to like, comment, and be subscribed to the YouTube page.
All right, kids. Well, like we talked about in the show earlier, and we've maybe gone a little far this week as far as our time, but we definitely appreciate you guys taking your time out of your busy schedules to watch the show. We also love doing this every single week, and tomorrow's race should be interesting, especially, make sure that your heads up on qualifying taking place, I believe, tomorrow at noon, right?
Yep.
And then the race starts at 3 o'clock Eastern, 2 p.m. Central.
Yep.
So that gives you a small window to get those lineups locked and put those in there. But make sure you pay attention to all that. Make sure you pay attention to the Denny Hamlin baby saga. That'll be a huge key for tomorrow. But we appreciate you guys watching the show. Again, like, comment, and then also subscribe to our channel. And you'll get your chance to win the Michael McDowell SpongeBob SquarePants diecast.
Thanks, kids, for tuning in. We really appreciate you all sticking with us and viewing every week. Hopefully we're helping you make some good money, and hopefully we're all making good money.
And one quick thing I do want to mention is we did have a tragedy this week in NASCAR. We did lose a former team owner, and Harry Scott. So our thoughts and prayers with him and his family as they go through that. So always tough to lose somebody from the NASCAR community, but especially a guy that gave his heart and soul to the sport that he loves so much. So prayers to his family. And
with that said, guys, we'll see you next week for another Rubbing His Racing show. Have a good one.
Have a great weekend, everybody.
It's up to you, New York, New York, New York.
And the big finish.